Morning, everybody. My name is David Bond, and I'm the Careers Manager at Birmingham City University, and I focus on the Faculty of Computing, Engineering and the Built Environment. So my role is mainly to prepare students for placements and internships, and also supporting them all the way through to their first graduate role. What I'm going to talk about today is, I guess, some just kind of basic hints and tips, really, to kind of get students thinking about their kind of journey and what they can do. So I'm going to have a look at kind of a bit of information about recruitment processes, the kind of hidden jobs market, and I guess how university careers teams can kind of support students and then also support businesses as well. So I think a lot of our students tend to really focus on kind of graduate and placement schemes with kind of large companies. And I think there are some kind of big advantages with looking at those bigger companies, perhaps in terms of salary, but in terms of the kind of training and development that those bigger companies offer. But with these schemes, it's really worth thinking about your time frames. So some of the schemes open as early as the start of September to start the following summer, and they also close really early as well. So they will close as soon as they have enough applicants, which can be as early as October or typically around Christmas time. So if you're interested in kind of looking at those bigger companies, then you do need to kind of apply early and make sure you're well prepared for those kind of schemes. But the majority of graduates don't work in bigger companies. I think, as some of the previous speakers like Tom have mentioned, actually it's a lot of those kind of smaller kind of SME companies that can really kind of work well with kind of students and graduates. There are a number of benefits that students can think about in terms of working with smaller companies. They may not be quite as glamorous as some of the bigger companies, but actually in terms of the responsibility that you might get, in terms of how you can develop your own role, there are some kind of really kind of positive benefits to consider. The way they structure and time their applications is really different as well. Processes are often quite simple in terms of their structure, but they're also advertised later. And it's not always advertised as a graduate scheme. Roles may not even be advertised as graduate positions. So you do have to look closely at job descriptions to see what sort of roles and what the responsibilities are. What we've seen recently is some really kind of big changes since coronavirus in terms of recruitment processes. A lot of companies are really moving online in terms of their processes, and the feedback from companies that we work with is that a lot of these processes will stay in place even after coronavirus and the kind of lockdowns have finished. So as an example, students are increasingly being asked to kind of pre-record video interviews, which wasn't kind of something that was common at all a couple of years ago. Over the last year, we've started to see students doing virtual assessment centres, which again was pretty much unheard of a year ago. But things have moved very quickly. So students really need to kind of be prepared for the changes that are taking place. In terms of a few tips and suggestions, this kind of reflects a lot of the things that kind of Graham was talking about as well. So if you're thinking about applying for job roles, really make sure you research the company, really make sure you research the job role. There is so much information available online. There's so much available kind of through kind of places like LinkedIn. So make sure that you have done your background research. If you've not done a pre-recorded video interview before, then it's definitely worth looking at how you can practice this. So our careers team, and I'm sure other careers teams, will offer kind of support for pre-recorded video interviews so you can practice it. We offer a service where students can get instant kind of AI related feedback on their performance. And just having that familiarity with those stages is really important. In terms of interviewing and doing virtual interviews, you need to treat it like it is an in-person interview. So like Graham was talking about, punctuality is really important. You need to make sure that you're not somewhere where you're going to be disturbed. You need to make sure that you have a very kind of simple background in place. You need to make sure that your Wi-Fi is stable and you're not likely to have any technical problems. And again, make sure that you're familiar with the technology that you're using. So if it's not a kind of platform that you've used before, just make sure that you know how to kind of navigate your way around it. One thing I think is really important is I think often students see interviews as being kind of, are they judged sufficiently? And they forget that actually an interview is a two-way process. So it's really important that actually you've got a kind of positive impression of the company, as well as them having a positive impression for you, because you need to make sure that that role is going to be right for you. The next thing I want to kind of talk about in terms of advice is perhaps the kind of routes and the ways that you kind of think about in terms of looking for jobs. I think typically students tend to really focus on just focusing on the big jobs boards that are out there, and they don't actually kind of take as much time to think about networking, to think about how they can perhaps use their networks to kind of see what jobs are out there. I think there is a lot of kind of information about kind of how many jobs are not advertised, but there are a considerable amount of jobs which aren't really advertised. They're not kind of seen on the big jobs boards. So you do need to think a little bit more creatively, especially at the moment with the pandemic, about how you start looking for jobs. If you're not using LinkedIn, again, it's a really kind of great resource, I think, particularly for sectors like computing and engineering. It's a really valuable kind of point of information in terms of what jobs are out there. It has its own jobs board. One thing students don't really understand is that actually LinkedIn has a really good alumni tool. So if you search for your university or even your college, you can start to kind of get some information on, actually, if you look at the students that went to that school or college or university, what are they doing now? So in terms of kind of potential companies that you may not be familiar with, it's a really kind of great tool just to kind of get some background information. In terms of how our team supports students and graduates, I think like a number of universities, we offer career support for students up to 3 years after graduation. So just because somebody has left the university doesn't mean that we don't continue to support them. We have a jobs board, we send out jobs bulletins, we organise regular meet the employer events. So these are kind of very targeted events where students get to meet employers kind of virtually at the moment. Like a lot of universities as well, we do placement years across all our kind of technical courses, but we also do micro placements. So these are kind of much shorter projects. We work within local kind of small and medium-sized companies, and they cover a wide range of roles, and they're usually doing additional work. Again, it's targeted and relevant. So we have electronic engineering students working on kind of small components and designing components for companies. And there's also additional projects suitable for students. So we have a program that kind of improves student STEM skills through a STEM Up program. And we do a specific program for graduates called the Graduate Retune program. And in terms of how we work with businesses, we offer free managed vacancies. So we support kind of local companies to kind of help sift and manage applications. We do free events for employers like careers fairs and meet the employer events. We fund kind of short placements at undergraduate and graduate level across a whole variety of kind of sectors and industries as well. So not just with computing and engineering, but across all courses. And we have a number of additional projects. And one project I just want to mention is our high-level skills match program. So it's in association with a number of other universities. It allows companies locally to kind of provide, to gain kind of specific skills to support their business. We do a business needs analysis for them. And also we offer kind of targeted recruitment support for those companies who are looking for projects, who are looking for kind of placement students. So we kind of bring everything together under one umbrella. And I think hopefully within time, that should be it from me. So